The SAT turns 100 years old this month, June of 2026. So what better time than now to do a series all month long on the SAT? And today specifically, I want to talk to you about what math you have to know in order to tutor the test. And you might be pleasantly surprised. I'm Daisy Luce, and I help people build flexible, profitable online tutoring businesses like me by specializing in high demand niches, and SAT tutoring is one of the best ones out there. So let's talk about it. If you've ever felt nervous about the math on the SAT, or you figured you'd have to relearn pre-calc to tutor it, this video is going to take that worry away. So here's my claim. Every math problem on the SAT can be solved and should be solved using just Algebra 1 and geometry skills, and sometimes even middle school math. That's it. That's the whole test. Let me show you. So this is my math formula sheet that I use with every student I tutor. Everything the math section on the SAT can throw at you lives somewhere here on this formula sheet. And I have it broken down by topic. Each row is a different topic. So I want to take you through it right now, just so you can kind of get a taste of what kind of math is on the SAT. The first row is Algebra 1 basics. You've got some vocabulary, some inequality, the basic exponent rules, all of the basics from algebra. There isn't really much on this row that students don't already know and have a really good recall for. I love to start with this row in our very first tutoring session with students because it's a little confidence booster, because like I said, they do know almost everything here with just a little prompting and a few things that I like to point out. The next row is the geometry part 1. You've got your angles, your triangles, some area, perimeter, basic shapes, nothing crazy. Some of the formulas, like I don't have the surface area formulas written out, but that's because as I'm working with a student, we generate them together. That's important because when they're on the test, they need to be able to recall how to do it. And I find if we talk about how to create the surface area formulas in real time together, that helps them sometimes with the recall later down the road. The third row, now this is a big one. These are the 3 big functions you learn in Algebra 1 and you focus on all year long. The lines, the quadratics, and the exponential functions. If there's one row to really master, it's this one, because this row, the material on this row, shows up more than anything else on the test. Then fourth row. The fourth row is statistics and percents, but honestly, I just call it the middle school row. And I laugh about that with my students because it's pretty crazy that the SAT can be can be so notorious for such a difficult type test, but yet they're testing on a lot of middle school concepts. Like right here, we've got averages, percents, ratios, some reading graphs and tables. And that was all from middle school. The SAT loves to dress these up so they look way harder than what they are, but the skill underneath is honestly way, way back from that low level of math. Okay, row 5 is geometry part 2. Now, this is the geometry you're supposed to know going into pre-calc. And this is where students and tutors start to think there is way more math on the SAT than there actually is. Yes, this material does show up again in pre-calc class, but you learned it first in geometry, and it's the geometry skill that is going to make solving these problems easiest, not a pre-calc skill. For instance, in pre-calc, you learn that sine and cosine have to do with the x, y, and r, and we do a lot of graphing in different quadrants. But back in geometry, way before that, you just learned the acronym SOHCAHTOA to help you remember the opposite, adjacents, hypotenuse, and what goes with what, without all the graphing. And that's the skill that you actually need when solving SAT problems. to make it as easy as possible and not overcomplicate it. All right, and then the last row is what I call the bonus row. It's just a handful of bonus algebra, geometry, and quadratic formulas that you do need to know. They do show up, just not as often as some of the other material, but they're on the test and you will get tested on it. So you definitely still want to know that. So that's the entire math section. 6 rows. Every problem on the test fits somewhere on this sheet. Nothing from Algebra 2, pre-calc, and definitely no calculus. Now, I do keep the formula sheet up to date as the test does shift a little over time. Every so often the College Board, I notice, adds something or quietly drops something. So I track the new problems I come across and I adjust the sheet whenever it changes. Like for instance, I am about to add a tiny mention about rhombuses. I'm going to add that to the sheet. Not anything too intense, but just a reminder, because a lot of students have forgotten that a rhombus is really just a tipped over square. And I also point out that the diagonals of a rhombus meet at 90 degrees, which means we often use Pythagorean theorem when asked about rhombuses. I've noticed that that pops up together. All very easy skills. Probably all of that even comes from middle school again, but something I do need to go over with students to review and just help them with the recall. Let me also just say, taking higher math classes does help you on the SAT, but probably not the way you think. So taking Algebra 2 does tend to make you a stronger math student. And that's just because Algebra 2 is mostly Algebra 1 repeated all over again, but every topic, every chapter, you just go a little bit deeper into the topic. So a kid who took Algebra 2 has basically practiced the Algebra 1 foundation twice. Their basics are sharper. That's the advantage. It's not that they learn new material in Algebra 2 that's on the test, because really the new stuff in Algebra 2, the part that's actually new and not a repeat, is not on the SAT. Things like logarithms, then the irrational number e, imaginary numbers, none of that is tested. And fun fact, imaginary numbers actually used to be on the older version of the SAT before it went digital, but not anymore. And so the information that you get all the time that you need Algebra 2 and pre-calc to take the SAT just isn't valid anymore. Will that change in the future? I don't know. But for right now, this is what we're focused on. So a higher math student isn't doing better just because they know advanced material. They're doing better on the test because their fundamentals are more solid. And hopefully that tells you exactly what your job is as a tutor. You don't have to teach advanced math, nor do you have to go back and relearn everything from all of high school math. You just have to teach these few math concepts really, really well. And you're there to make the basics for your student rock solid. Every now and then, the test will wave something in front of a student that looks like it came from a higher math class, just to kind of, I think, rattle them a little bit and make them overcomplicate a really simple problem. And that's a trap. It's done on purpose, I think. I will show you some examples all month long of different math and reading problems so you can start to see what I'm talking about and how to apply these concepts to actual problems. So what does this all mean for you? You've got a roadmap now. You know what's on the test, and just as important, you know what isn't. You don't need to dust off logarithms. You don't need to relearn pre-calc. You need Algebra 1 and geometry solid and sharp. That's less for you to prepare, less time for your students to waste on material that is never going to show up, and they will thank you for that. Don't want to, you want to get them results as fast as you can. The formula sheet I just walked you through, by the way, is free. There is a link down below where you can grab a copy of it if you want to look it over in more detail. Or if you want to use it even in your own tutoring sessions, feel free. It's up for grabs. It's the exact sheet broken down by all the rows I just showed you. So grab it. You'll have the whole math section on one page. Next week, I'm getting into the bigger idea underneath all of this, why the SAT is a logic test and not a knowledge test, and how that one shift changes the way you tutor every kind of question. As I said already, this whole series is running all month for the SAT's 100th birthday, so hit subscribe, follow me here so you won't miss any of it, and happy tutoring, friend.